Hello, everyone. Boys and girls, Bawa Buenino. Welcome to another episode of Kiss Me I'm Goan. This is season 2, 2024, and we have a very special guest who's making sense, but making sense out of sense, I would say. And a financial wizard who's like sprinkling her, I would say, her fairy dust on, small minds, and who's, teaching young kids to turn their piggy banks into piggy fortunes.
Okay, yeah, wow. I hope, yeah,
I know I didn't introduce myself. I'm Carrie, and this with me as always is my sidekick,
yeah,
Neil
yeah,
Bub.
yeah. The same old guys. New year, new excitement. Hopefully, season two will be much more interesting than season one.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of guests, a lot of
We
guests.
got a lot of ideas, a lot
Yeah.
of guests lined up
The
actually.
Christmas, New Year brought a lot of new ideas, fresh ideas. So we're very excited for season two.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely, for sure.
But let's dig deep into today's episode.
Yeah.
So today with us we have Marilyn Pinto. Marilyn is welcome, Marilyn. She is the founder of a company called the KFI Global. What we're most excited about is they're also a fellow podcaster like us. A bit more experience, I would imagine, with a small little podcast called Smarter, Richer, and Braver. You've published a book. That's a great achievement as well.
Yeah, add
Titled
faster to it. That could be a song or something.
Smart- yeah.
Yeah.
So he published a book as well called Smarter, Richer, Braver: Unleash the Power of Financial Education to Turbocharge Your Teen's Future. Won a lot of awards. I'll try my best to run through them as quick as possible. So these are awards over the last couple of years, starting 2022 until 2024. The best school age financial education program in Singapore in 2022. Most innovative customer happiness initiative, CHSA 2022 Dubai. You were a runner up for the best CSR in education with JESS 2022. Highly commended most impactful financial literacy program, and I hope I'm saying it right. Is this
The
Mental
Awards.
Awards?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, Mental Awards 2023. A silver award from the Educational Institute of the Year.
I think Anton would be like, we mental awards. Say,
Yeah, so a silver award from the Educational Institute of the Year for CHSA 2023 Dubai, and the most innovative financial education provider, Women Business Leaders 2024. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Great,
And I'm
that's a
really
great
happy to be
achievement.
here.
Yeah.
Welcome
and,
to yeah.
and welcome, of course. And most what I want to just interject over there is that to get this kind of recognition over a 2-year, 3-year period is kudos. Well done. And that's why we're very excited to have you.
I would say Valor.
Valor, yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
it's not.
Which is-
It's yes. It's a. Anyways, we'll get into that a little bit later. But it's well done. I mean, it's really commendable on what you've done. So, welcome to Kiss Me I'm Goan.
Thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be here.
Great.
And we'd like to start off with, are you going, Marilyn?
Yeah, the stupid.
Didn't you guys do your
question
research?
out
But
first.
yes, I am. I am.
Tell us where you're
So-
from in Goa.
From Panjim in Goa.
Okay.
That's just next to Fontainebleau. If you, from the St. Thomas ward, just next to Fontainebleau, and that's where I've lived from 10 years of my life. I wasn't born in Goa, so
Right.
maybe your question was was correct in some sense.
Yeah.
I was born in Kuwait, but I lived about 10 years of my life in Goa, and I think that's
Okay.
been the most impactful 10 years, and the 10 years that actually shaped the way I think and
So
and
was
the
it
values that I
schooling?
have. Yeah, schooling. Yeah, so from the
in-
7th standard onwards,
Oh, wow.
right up to finish to the time I finished university at St. Xavier's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
All right. Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
So, I mean, it's a throw a rock in the water, but was it the Kuwait war that brought you back to Goa?
No, it was before.
Oh,
It was before. Yeah,
Okay,
we
okay.
so about 3 years before
Okay, okay.
The Kuwait war. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. And so then you stayed in Panjim.
Yes, for all that time.
All
Yes,
that time. Okay,
yes.
so you're a Panjim girl.
Yes, very
You're
much.
naughty. We are those Saudi.
Saudi, yeah.
There is a little bit of a schism there, isn't
Yeah.
always.
So in one of our previous episodes, actually the first or second one, our guest was a pure naughty, and then we got into a little bit of a tussle. Not of course in a very fun
Yeah.
way, but saying, okay, the food in the south is much better than the food in the north, and he was like, no ways.
The
You're
dialect,
totally
the
off.
food,
You're
yeah,
totally
there's-
off. You know?
Dialected food, yeah.
Yeah. So
There'll always be that north versus
This is
south.
not-
Yeah.
It's I think a lot of countries share the same thought process. So great, growing up in Panjim, and then you studied as well in. You said you were in Saint Xavier's.
St. Xavier's, yes.
Okay,
St.
so
Xavier's.
that's Mopsa, right?
Mapsa, that's
Okay,
right.
so you're
Yeah.
traveling
Yeah,
regularly.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, wow. You never thought of moving and staying in Mopsa, or was it fun?
No, I love Panjim. I love.
Okay,
I
yeah,
like to
yeah.
be where
That's
the
probably what-
action is.
I think it's still a fantastic city.
It is.
Yeah, yeah.
It's changed
Well,
so much, though.
yeah.
But especially the area where we live has changed so much.
Right
It's
now, they're
become-
trying to make it a smart city, but it's not yet.
I think the jury's still out on that.
It's anything but smart, I would say, right now.
Yeah, I know it's actually in the news right now.
Yeah,
by the
yeah,
way. Just
that's-
FYI, they're debating whether it's actually smart or not. But we and I used to love. So just to into context, me and Carrie were Loyola boys in Margao.
Oh,
So
okay.
we studied.
I remember just. Have you ever been to Chicky Chockies?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
That was a famous joint back then in Panjim.
Just to give you context, I was studying in Ooty. I did my 3 years of college in Ooty, and so I used to always do Ooty, Goa, a couple of days in Goa, and then come to Dubai with mom and dad who were here.
Oh, okay.
But so I used to do, didn't have money, so we didn't fly. We did the bus, and the
Okay,
bus
yeah.
was Ooty, Bangalore, and then a night in Bangalore, and then Bangalore, Goa.
Right.
So it was pretty much scheduled. My trip was, okay, you leave Ooty, you come touchdown Bangalore, party. You don't sleep as much as possible. Take the next bus out. You sleep in the bus, you travel, and then you reach early morning Panjim.
Okay.
But it's true to my word. We had this thing where 3 or 4 of us from Goan boys, we were at Chicky Choki around 12 noon. These guys were just opening up, and we're like standing over there with our backpacks. Here we come from Bangalore.
Oh my God. Those are good times.
Yeah. Yeah. So you stayed in Panjim and then moved to. Traveled on a regular basis to Mapsa.
Yes, until I finished college there, and then worked in Goa for a few years before moving to Pune.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
Oh,
I-
wow.
okay.
Okay.
All right.
I
Wow,
worked with
interesting.
Coca-Cola in Pune for some time, and then went to the UK, studied there. Then came to Dubai for what I thought was just 2 years, and hey, it's been
Why Dubai, may I ask? What
I
happened?
had a lot of family here. So my sister
Okay.
was here, my aunt, my uncle, my cousins. There
Okay.
were a lot of family here. So I just
Right.
came on my way back from the UK. And then I was like, it's like quicksand, isn't it, Dubai? It just
Yeah.
sucks
Yeah,
you
yeah.
in. Yeah.
It sucks you.
But you didn't want to stick around in UK or.
No, the food was. Sorry, I just couldn't make my peace with it.
So growing up in Goa, I'll just say, of course, it's from the 7th standard onwards. And since you mentioned food right now, Goan food was characteristic of your growing up, which impacted you in UK as well.
My God, I think being a Goan and eating pure, true Goan food really spoils you for other cuisines. I don't think any cuisine, and I know I'm biased, but I don't think any cuisine actually compares. Even comes close to the variety and the flavors that we have. So, I'm a big foodie and Goan
You're a foodie?
very much so.
And do you cook, may I ask?
Yes, but I do when I go back to Goa. Of course, I don't cook the
Yeah, of
traditional
course, yeah.
cook. I don't think I could ever even come close to that. But I do love the Goan food, and I'm especially partial to anything that has pork in it. So
Okay.
it's not a kosher statement, I know, but when I go back on holiday, it's like I have
So, what's your Goan comfort food? In a
Goan
way?
sausages,
Like a dish.
Goan
Okay,
sausages,
okay.
breakfast,
So,
lunch, dinner. I can
tourists.
have it
Really?
every single day. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. Could never get fed up of it.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right. Big tourist pound fan.
Yeah.
Oh,
So we had a
nice.
couple of episodes where we've discussed as well where's the best chorizo power, right? And
Yeah,
a
yeah.
couple of places that have come up.
Yeah.
There's one place in Panjim which is I think tops everyone's. The place at Miramar. What's it?
Yeah. Well,
Together.
I've not had honestly in Miramar, but fond memories are that I think Agasai. Oh.
Agasa, yeah.
And
Yeah.
even old Goa during the feast.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
St. Francis Xavier.
Brought back
that's-
memories. In December was the feast of Saint Francis, and then we had a small little episode. It brought back memories of my riding. Going all the way for the masses, but all the way from Margao to Old Goa was not about the church or Saint Francis Xavier. It was a walk after
Yeah.
to get those tourist
Of
pounds
course.
and to get those the Goan delicacies. Oof, it was to be it was. I used to look forward to it almost like 10 days in advance. Okay, we're going on the 2nd or the 1st or whatever. We're going for these masses and we're gonna enjoy the food, street food, and then come back home.
Would you say Goa is different from other states in India? And do we have our own culture, history, in your
So
opinion?
if you ask me what is different, yeah, I think what really jumps out at you first in terms of different, how what is different about Goa is it's people. I think that's what
Yeah.
I think. If you have any friends who have friends who are Goans, no, they just when they talk about their Goan friends, they just do it with a smile. It's just I think
Yeah.
the Goan people just have that warmth, that hospitality, and just that joie de vivre. It's just they're so much fun
Yeah.
to be with,
Right. Right.
Yeah,
and
Right.
yeah.
I think that's very distinctive of Goans, and it's very characteristic. And I think that's one thing that really sets the Goan.
Right.
Sets
Right.
Goa, from. And of course, there's the food and there's so much, but I definitely think where it gets really special is the people, and you can't.
Right.
I don't think anything comes close to that.
And I don't know if you've worked with Goans, and we've always spoken about this, Neil and I, on our shows.
Yeah.
Would you say Goans are hardworking or they're susegad?
So I think we have a bad reputation. That word
Yeah.
just seems to
Yeah.
stick to us. That we are
Yeah.
susegad and easy. There's nothing wrong with it. I think we
Yeah.
balance life pretty well, and
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's great to be able to balance life and have a little bit of fun in everything that you do, and maybe that's something that's really stuck with me because. For me, I don't see my work as work. I really enjoy it. I love doing what I do, and so yeah, I think maybe I've got a little bit of that susegad, characteristic in with work, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I definitely think
Yeah.
that's a
No,
good thing.
I
We touched
definitely
based on
agree.
it, yeah, because we used to. The reason why Carrie usually asks a couple of our guests on it, because we got mixed reactions, a couple of times where some of them have said, yeah, they've been fantastic to work with. They're really friendly, like you're saying. We have that culture ingrown in us, wherein it comes off in interactions. So you can spot a Goan,
Yeah.
within a couple of, let's say, Indians or whatever. But there've been a couple of them who've kind of said that the Susagat culture kind of is dug so deep that it kind of reflects in the work performance, as you may call it. We're a little bit more laid back. People will not be. I'll use the word efficient. But again, it's debatable what's efficient from a
No,
from
and I think maybe it's because, say, for example, like you're a manager in a company or your hotel, right?
Mm,
And you hire a Goan, you
mm,
help him out and you give him a job.
mm.
And he takes it for granted. Oh, Neil is
Yeah,
a
yeah,
Goenka,
yeah,
he's my
yeah,
own.
yeah,
I can be cool, relaxed.
yeah.
So I mean that's what I've
Yeah.
observed with
So yeah,
certain.
so
That's
the
the
other
reason.
side of the ring is that basically that people have said that, okay, because we are Goans and we've hired other Goans, there's a sense of relaxation. There's not, they feel that, okay, the job's secure, as you may call it, and they're not really putting in their hard work into the work.
But there's another way to look at that, right? Just because someone's given you a chance, I think you want to work harder to prove that you are worth that you were worth him taking a chance on you. So
Yeah.
it's difficult to generalize. I think you got to see it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it
yeah.
depends on each person's work ethic. And but I think that sticker is definitely quite quite prominent when it comes
Yeah,
to Goans.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
and if
yeah.
you work hard, they're like, oh yeah, that's not very Goan of you. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
I've
that's
got
true.
that.
Yeah,
I've got
yeah,
that so many
yeah.
times. Like, oh, okay, that's, we don't expect Goans to work on a Sunday, or we don't expect. So I have got that, so I know where you guys are coming from.
Yeah.
But I think it's
I think
difficult
that's
to
what's also
generalize.
changing in Goa right now, because if you've noticed, there are a lot of the other Indians who have settled in, right? And they've opened up businesses and they're working like on the
We
clock.
got to just be more
But
competitive
there's
now.
no siesta for them. And Goans have siesta, and and that's where, of course, Goans are maybe business as well because they're so relaxed about it. But anyway, I mean that's part of our
No, but
DNA, and
but
it's
you and I remember you and I were discussing a couple of weeks back about the fact that, so I think it's more generational, in the sense like our fathers, like my dad and even Carrie's dad, who was working in Dubai for some time. In the good old days, it was nothing to do with us Goans, right? It was about the way like everybody took a break at 12 o'clock, everybody came back at
4 o'clock.
and then it was what was how the culture was. Even in Dubai, it was like this. Because I was just discussing this with Carrie some days back, and he said, "Listen, man, you're working together on a small." He was helping me with my house, and he's like, "Listen, you can't go between 1 and 4." And I'm like, "Why can't I go between 1 and 4? Because that's easier for me. It's my lunch break."
Yeah.
So he's like, "No, everybody closes shop over here, and then they come back only at 4." So I'm like, "Wow, this is fantastic." This has reminded me of the good old, the good old days. Where even my dad, for example, had a mandatory break between, I think, 1 to 4, and in that was, a small little, it was lunch, a little siesta kind of thing, get kind of I will call it rejuvenated kind of thing after that small little power nap, and he was back to work at 4, working till I was 7. But I think that's changed even here,
Yeah,
right?
now
Now
it's
everybody,
changed.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's no
Well,
longer
it's
like
not,
it used to
it's,
be.
yeah,
Can
it's
I
not,
confess something? I
yeah.
actually try and do that a lot.
Is it?
Because I work from home and I always will fit in. And my husband makes fun of me. He's like, "What is this? Like, how can you sleep?" I'm like, "It's good for the soul. Try it."
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. True,
yeah.
true.
And I will just always take a power nap in the middle of the
And
afternoon.
I think it recharges you. You
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
better. You
Definitely.
can work more,
Yeah.
and
Oh
and
gosh,
yeah.
I
That's
can't.
that's the story I'm sticking with. So
That means now, Carrie, I can't call you between 1 to
no.
4.
Close shop or something. Put
Yeah.
a sign out there. But coming to the financial, no, let's start from the start. When I met you earlier, you started a media company.
Yes, my husband and I started a media company when we were back here. He used to work with Gulf News for a long time, and then we started the company together. It's still going on. It's just that
Yeah, I
I
believe so.
don't work.
You're not involved
I'm
now.
not involved on a day-to-day basis with that. I still have a few clients that I handle, but by and large, I have this thing started off as a I didn't intend to start a business. That was not what, at least with KFI, it was just. I noticed my kids were so clueless about money, and
Right.
and I thought education would have changed since the time we went to school. It's supposed to be so much more innovative and changed and modernized, but actually they're just learning the same things that we were, whatever 40 years ago. And I realized that no matter which school it was and what curriculum it was, UK, US, it didn't matter. They were still not teaching financial education, and I was like, well, okay, how hard could it be? I'll get certified, I'll learn it, and I'll teach them. Of course, that door slammed really hard in my face because kids don't learn from parents, and we should,
Yeah,
they don't,
yes,
they,
of
they,
course.
they just don't.
When did this happen? Which year
So
you?
this was about 6 years ago.
Okay.
This was
Okay.
about 6 years ago.
Right.
But then I didn't take it personally. I realized that kids just like learning from, from an unbiased educator in the company
Right.
of their peers. And that's when we started KFI Global. And even at that point, like I thought, I'll just do it till and because I looked for programs that I could enroll them into, but everything was just so basic and so, it's just like have 3 jars, save, spend, and I mean, spending money and your money behaviors are dependent on so many more things than that. So I thought, okay, let me just create a program, and as soon as I find someone who does it better than I am, I will stop. That was really my idea. I didn't find anyone who has been able to do it better. And I'm not saying this. I'm not being sort of immodest. So it just. I think the approach that we take to financial education is just a lot more holistic. It takes into account your behaviors, it takes into account your values, and that's why I think we've been so successful. We've been able to really create gain traction in the market because we just do it differently from most people, from most companies who try to teach this to kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we were discussing about when we were talking about having you on the episode. And one of the things that I told Carrie is like, damn, I wish when we were growing up in Goa, there was this course,
You and everybody else. I mean,
yeah,
I wish someone had taught it to me.
because I remember when I first started, I started my career in Goa, and you start I work in hotels, so you start at the bottom and you really get
Yeah.
peanuts. You get
Yeah.
thrown peanuts kind of thing. So as you kind of grow up the ladder, which is about 4 or 5 years into my career, you reach that kind of India reaches that kind of you reach a salary bracket where you have to start looking at managing your finances. You need to put in investments and stuff like that. And at that time, I was, for lack of a better word, I was a zero in this. It was just you go with the flow.
Go with the flow,
So
yeah.
everybody says, okay, you're in that tax bracket right now, so you have to do insurance.
Yeah.
So everybody gets into this one thing where you start, you're just going with the flow. It's like 100
Yeah.
people next to you are telling you do this,
So you
so
do
you're
that.
doing it. And then now, in hindsight, you're like, damn it, I wish I had
Imagine
the
you
kind
started
of
investing then,
yeah,
or
yeah, I wish I had somebody who had at least told me, okay, there's option B, C, D, E, F, G, H,
Yeah.
and there's so many things out there in the market which you can play with. And then my wife and I always talk about this. It's like, we have this couple of policies which are just running, and if they doesn't make
Yeah.
sense
Yeah.
at all. And then you go back and think, I wish, because you start, because I have these conversations with my daughter a lot about fact that she'll talk about why do I need to do math and why do I need to do X, at this subjects and stuff like that. And I kind of agree with her to some extent, where I think, yeah, I mean, I learned French. I don't speak a word right now. Couldn't talk to a Frenchman for nuts. I wish instead of French, I was learning financial management, because I know I would use
Of
those
course.
skills
So much
today.
more relevant. Yeah.
They are more relevant to me today
Yeah.
than anything. It's like another thing that I speak about is languages. I mean, yeah, okay. We learned French, but we learned how to write it. Nobody taught us how to speak it.
Yeah.
And and today, no matter how much we got, I mean, we would have got maybe.
Yeah.
Carrie and I were, of course, the bottom benches. So
Yeah.
we got a
Sucker
35,
player.
yeah, 35 out of 100 in English or French or whatever. But it's irrelevant, because we don't speak the language. If you're
True.
learning a language, it makes sense to speak it. Rather, of course, learn it to
Yeah.
the writing, but it makes more logical sense for you to speak it. And the same thing with finance. It should, I mean, FinEd, it should be something that you learn, which is more relevant to your day to day life. But it's good. The great thing is that we're having this conversation,
yeah.
and hopefully, if it reaches out to maybe 1 or 2 years in Goa, maybe some parents will, start talking to their
Well,
kids about
actually,
it.
whenever I go down on vacation, I always go back to the schools or colleges that I passed out, like Xavier's, and I do a program for the
Wow.
for the students
Okay,
there,
nice.
and it's something that I feel strongly about. It's like my way of giving back, and
That's great.
and it's still crazy to think that they still don't know in today's day and age that everyone's clueless about money, about how to manage it, about what to do with it, and I love doing those programs because the kids really, it's not a mandatory attendance, but nobody leaves. They're just like, no, they don't even go out for a break. They're like, in the break, everyone's crowded around you asking questions because they see the relevance in it. They see that, okay, this is something I'm actually going to use. And I just wish we could do more on that front.
Yeah. So I have a question for you on this. Now that you spoke, now that you've got a little bit of experience in Dubai as well as in Goa, and so if I were to ask you, on a scale of 1 in 10 students in Dubai who are kind of financially literate and versus 1 in 10 students in Goa, what would you think the numbers would be? Do you think that the kids in Dubai are a lot more, or is it the same?
Okay, so firstly, I've taught kids in Dubai, I say UAE, so let's say Dubai, Abu Dhabi, most of the other Emirates. I've taught in Kuwait, I've taught in Jeddah, I've taught in Daman, I've taught in Riyadh, I've taught hundreds of kids in all of these places. And can I say that it makes no difference where you are?
Really?
Everybody is
Okay.
about the same, starting from zero, or even like it's crazy to think. A lot of people think, oh, in certain countries you're more, or just because maybe you come from a more prosperous city, you should. It doesn't make a difference. You still
Okay.
know nothing about money. You know how to spend it, yeah? I mean, you might have
Yeah.
different ways of spending it, but that's where the differences would end. When it comes to the actual knowledge about money and what affects your money behaviors, everybody is still the same. And I get, because we used to do this earlier for a lot of kids, so the parents would call her. And no matter where the parents were from, they would always think, well, because we live in Dubai, it's very hard for our kids to have values about money or to understand it. But I spoke to parents from India, they felt the same way. I used to speak to parents from Australia because we would do Zoom classes with them, and they felt the same way. So do parents in Europe as well. So everybody thinks that it's very specific to our culture and our city, that's why our kids don't know about money, but it's a global issue.
Yeah.
It really is. And I think no matter which country you come from or which culture you come from, money is not spoken about enough. And definitely there's not a single school in the world that does enough to teach students.
I wanted
about
to
money.
understand where do you start? Like which grade in school, or the age range? Like where do you start
So
from?
we typically don't do programs for kids younger than 10. I just think 10 to 12 is
Right.
like a sweet spot. It's a really good age to start talking to kids about money. They're really curious and they want to learn, and there's they haven't been hit by the teen years yet, so they're really curious to learn. And but where our focus group is and where our main demographic and where we focus our efforts on is actually for teenagers. So from 13 to,
Okay.
when I say teenagers and young adults, 13 to 24.
Right, right, yeah.
I call them kids, but mainly because their brains are not fully developed yet. Their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed, which means it's easier for us to teach them. You see, I can easily do classes for adults, but it's very difficult for us to
Yeah.
change. I mean, I'm a perfect example. I technically know what's the right thing to do, but I still instinctively will many times do the wrong thing because I've been hardwired all my life
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
that,
yeah.
right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
with young people, with youngsters, we have a fantastic opportunity to hardwire them the right way.
Yeah.
And it's easier, it's simpler, it's cheaper, it's longer lasting. it just makes so much sense to teach them when they are young, because when you do that, they instinctively learn the right way to behave. There's not much unlearning that needs to happen. When you're teaching adults, there's a lot of unlearning that needs to happen. So I think that's why, and I like easy work. Maybe the Susegat part of me. So I think teaching youngsters is a lot. Has a lot of impact. You can actually see the impact immediately with youngsters, and I think that's really is really fulfilling to see.
And how do you get them engaged? Like, is there a way? I know you can't give out all the information.
It's not the question of it's not the question of
I think
information.
instinctively they get engaged themselves.
For one, the topic is relevant, right? So I'm lucky that I'm teaching. I'm teaching a topic that immediately they see the relevance to it. They also see, and youngsters, as much as we might think that they're clueless, what they do understand is that their parents stress about money. They understand that, and they understand that they would like to be of some help. They'd like to understand it more. Nobody talks to kids about money enough. So and we talk very honestly to them. We talk. We don't sugarcoat it. We don't say, oh, you do this program and you're going to be a million. No, it doesn't work like that. But it is going to give you the skills to understand what's going on and to understand what the kind of stresses and concerns your parents might have. And I think that's one of the key things that we do. We also have a whole framework that we've done this for so many kids now. So we have a whole framework of teaching kids how, in a way, not just that it's important to learn, but also that they have fun learning it. Because I think when you have fun learning something, you just learn it better. And that's something I've always felt really strongly about. So whenever we do our programs, we really want to ensure that the way we teach the program is as special as what we're teaching. And really, when it comes to what, there's a few principles that everybody should know. There's not a big difference, but it's the how that you teach that really makes a difference, that really gets into your head and changes your mindset. And that's what we work on. So we really work on the kids' mindset first before anything, which is really important, because I think 80% of anything that you learn is up here in your head. It depends on your mindset. Everything else is just tactical. So if we don't do the mindset bit first, and a lot of programs don't, they just go straight into, okay, this is how you calculate stuff. That's just kind of pointless. It's like, water off a duck's back. It's not going to make a difference. You need to change their mindset first. They need to understand how important it is, how it's going to impact their life. And kids are not stupid. They realize that, hey, this is really going to give me a leg up over everybody else. It's going to help me understand things so much better. And I can see adults struggling with this. Like if I go to a class and I ask them, do you think most adults are making smart money decisions? Unanimously, they're like, no.
Okay.
So they understand that. They know that. They also don't want to be that.
They are probably part of the conversation in the family unit. I know, for
They
example,
probably overhear it. Yeah. I don't think many families actually take the trouble to. I'm guessing you're different, but most families don't take the trouble to sit down and explain finances, mainly because we weren't taught that way. Our parents never spoke to us about money, right? It was always either hushed up conversation or just never spoken about. So I don't think that much I don't think things have changed. It's still, and from what I hear from students, they're like, yeah, well, our parents they just say, listen, you just go and study. We'll look after this bit. Okay. That's what parents tell them. You don't worry about this. This is our concern. You just study. But I think it doesn't give them enough nuance or context around it. I think when they understand more, they just become more self-aware, and that maturity comes really quickly as well.
And is it like these kids now start after going through your program? Do they think twice about asking allowance or for something like Dad, I need a new laptop. I need this. I need that.
So a lot of what we do is we facilitate conversations between kids and parents. So we get them to do. So for most teenagers, the only conversation they have with their parents about money is may I have some, right? That's about it. Yeah. So we get them to talk differently we get them to understand differently about it, and it does make a difference. If I think one of the main things is they understand how hard their parents work for it, and how it's not something to be just like, they don't take it for granted anymore. They understand the concerns, they understand the difficulties involved. I think the whole understanding and awareness just grows a lot, which is a great start. I'm not saying that, they're going to be money whizzes when they come from the program. That's because it's not a sprint, right? It's a marathon. You got to keep doing it. Yeah. But it's a great start, and I think
So
it's one
they
that
realize with the program
yes,
that
yes,
my
and they,
parents are struggling or whatever.
or if not struggling, there
It's not
some a lot
struggling,
of
but
them, a
yeah,
lot of even say, I think my parents are making really bad money choices.
okay,
And they
right,
and they talk and they're the kids, like I said, they're not stupid,
yeah,
and they
Yeah.
understand that wow, I don't think my parents are paying their credit card debt, their credit card bill in full every month, or I don't think they're doing this, or I'm pretty sure they don't have an emergency fund. So once we teach them the concepts, we always teach them to relate it to their lives, and
Yeah.
we ask them to go back home and have these conversations with their parents, and that's how we reach like I think a wider audience. So even though we're educating one person, what we're doing is educating the whole family, because we're
Yeah.
getting them to go back and talk and discuss and make it relevant to their lives.
Yeah.
Because I think you learn something a lot better when it's relevant to your life, as again
Yeah.
something you're going to use in
yes,
5 or 10 years when you graduate or get a job. Everything that we teach the kids, they can start implementing right now, today,
Yeah.
true.
in their lives.
And I have a shared experience on this. So we recently moved houses in Dubai, and one of the things that when we were discussing, obviously my daughter got a little bit excited, and she said, "Oh, we should live here. We should live there. We should live there." And then my wife and I was like, "No, that's not within our budget." And then it got her a bit interested, actually, to be honest. So she came back to me and she said, "How are you making that decision? How are you deciding what's?" So of course you get into, okay, what's your package, how much you're getting, and then the instant connection was that, okay, so if you're making X amount of money, we can definitely find this place. This makes sense.
Yeah.
So then I had to go a little back to, and I said, listen, it's not as
It's not
simple
just
as
that,
that. You have to look into where all the money is going. You have to put aside maybe, I don't know, 10%, 15% for X expenses, Y, Z, for a rainy day, the basic middle class concepts, or you will say the framework that you have as far as savings are concerned. So she got excited. It was. I think most importantly, when it's
She was
relevant.
curious and
Yeah,
interested.
she suddenly she said, okay, so that's interesting. So
How
then she
old is
said,
your daughter, Neil?
so she's 15,
Oh, okay,
going
that's
on
a
40. No, she was so, and then again, nobody taught me this, but over time, I kind of, maybe I'm wrong. I was like, okay, Anya, I would say if in the future, tomorrow, if you're earning, say, $1,000, I would say you would spend maximum around $300 for your rent. You should not be looking at paying $600. You will think, okay, I'm getting $1,000, so $600 for rent makes sense, and I'll keep 400. It's like, no, you have to. There's a certain kind of
Yeah.
system, or I would say there's a certain science to some extent,
Yes.
where you have to look at all the other, because you're not aware. At that point of time, you'll think, okay, I can afford it, but you're not really aware of all the other expenses that could potentially come up.
True.
So yeah, I understand what you're saying, and it's important also. One more thing I wanted to say, we've discussed this in a couple of episodes before, where we talk about our small little rants about Goa, and we say things should change. And I've always said, and I've told this, and we share it with our guests as well, I said it all starts with education, and it all starts at the grassroots levels. That's so
Absolutely.
important.
That's
I mean,
true.
we are expecting our kids for the future to make the change, but if you're not going to teach them today how to do it.
And if we are not living the change, then
Exactly,
it's
exactly,
because
yeah.
remember, kids don't listen to what you say, right? They're just watching what you do. So I
Yeah.
think that's one of the key things. We're just like preaching to them, oh, you should be doing this, or you guys are the leaders of tomorrow, but we're the leaders of today. What are we doing?
Exactly,
Right?
yeah,
And I think
yeah.
that's something that hits really hard when you
Right.
when
Yeah.
you have kids and you realize that you
Yeah.
really are setting an example in and it does not matter what you say. You can be preaching a great game,
Yeah.
but it
Means
doesn't, it
nothing
means
if
nothing
you don't
if
walk the
they don't
walk.
see you
Yeah.
walking that talk,
Yeah,
and they're
yeah.
very very intuitive that way.
Yeah.
I think they can see straight through the BS and say like, okay,
Yeah.
you're,
Yeah.
you're preaching one thing and you're doing
Yeah,
something
yeah.
else. Yeah.
I'm a little bit passionate. Sorry, I'm a little bit passionate about sustainability, and my daughter has kind of got back to me a couple of times. So she's like, you'll always say do this, but tell me, what are you doing on the other end?
Yeah.
So what's happened is we like plastic, for example. I
Correct.
keep on saying let's avoid plastic and stuff like that. Small little day-to-day decision that we can make. So she got a little bit excited, and then she came back to me and she said, okay, what about this? What about that? What about this? And I was like excited. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm so happy that you're starting to think, and your brain starting to
Right.
ask you, okay, we're doing this one little thing, and let's push the envelope somewhere or the other.
Okay. Hope she doesn't become like Greta of burgers.
Hey, we could do it. We could do with a lot more Gretas in this world. So yeah, I'm a fan.
That's definitely not missing school. Not on my watch.
But what has been the feedback from parents of these kids and
Feedback's being overwhelming, actually. I mean, how
Okay.
could it not be? Just because, for one, your kids come back suddenly with a very mature understanding of what money is. And also, for one, it makes the kids see the parents differently. But I think more importantly, it makes the parents see the kids differently just because of the kind of questions that the kids are asking now, the understanding that they have. So you suddenly go like, wow, okay, you can handle this and you're mature and I can have these conversations with you now. So it really does have a very big, I mean, some of our, the, the, the strongest feedback we've gotten is from parents thinking, I didn't trust my kid, but even giving them an allowance but now I can see that understanding. I can see how mature they are. And it really makes a big difference.
they become conscious about their
They become,
spending?
yes, they become.
Okay.
I mean, yes, they're not. I'm not saying that they're never going to make stupid spending. Of course, they
Yeah,
will.
yeah, they will.
But you know what? They've understood it now. They know that
Yeah,
they are
yeah.
consciously making that choice. You see,
Right.
with us, we all had the excuse that, well, nobody taught us, right? I want to take that excuse away from these youngsters, and whatever it is, you can't blame us for saying we taught you this. Now, if you want to go ahead and make stupid money decisions, you can still do that, but that's on you. What's right and wrong now, and I think that it really hits home with them, and they're like, I said it's great, yeah, it's great to learn from your own mistakes, but don't make the same stupid mistakes that all of us made, decades and decades and generations before us. Go out and make some new mistakes. I'm not saying, you got to, no, don't learn from everybody else's mistakes. And we've all made practically the same mistakes when it comes to money. Not started saving enough, spending on frivolous things, and while it's fine in, of course, you gotta balance it, and that's a key part of what we teach. But many of these youngsters they are not even exposed to these concepts, so they don't start thinking about it. I mean, I am a key. I think I'm a great poster child for that. Soon out of college, I was lucky enough to get a job that paid me well, and I was like, I was living at home, so no, I don't have to pay for rent, for food, or whatever. So my only concern was like, great, how do I blow this up before my next month's check comes in? I know it's so stupid. I know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but if I was the only person who thought like that, I'd be like, great. But I know a lot of people who
Yeah.
did the same thing.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
For
no,
the
no.
first decade of our lives, all we did was just
Yeah.
pull
Yeah.
up the money, just because. And yes, our parents kept saying you should save. But hey, we didn't listen to our parents. Our kids don't listen to us. This is the thing, and saving is not the that's not what we were paying attention to. That's not what we did. So I like I said, we've all made the mistakes. We should really ensure that the next generation isn't making the same stupid ones. That's just my biggest cause right now.
Right.
You must be having parents coming and saying, "Hey, can you teach us?"
A lot of them do, and now we
I
have
mean,
started.
it's never too old. You're never too old to learn, right?
Anyway.
But I think it's a lot more nuance than that, because when you come as adults and you already have problems that you're dealing with, like you're already in debt, or you're always coming from a financial back foot, so to say. Whereas when we're working with the youngsters, we're making sure that they're not going to get into that trouble, or they are very, very wise about the decisions that they make. Unfortunately, with most grown-ups, it's like, wow, I have this much amount of debt, or I have all of these bills that I can't pay, and so they need actually individual financial advisors. You can't just give them general advice, and it's really wrong to come and say, oh, you should be doing this, because that may not be what's right for you. So it becomes very, very nuanced, and it becomes very personal when it comes to that. So at that point, you need a certified financial advisor. But we are educators. We teach you on what the right things to do. We can educate you, but we won't advise you on what to do with your money.
Right.
Which also gets me to. I mean, the next thing is I've seen one of your previous things where you made a statement saying you could do an MBA and you could even an MBA in finance, but that doesn't necessarily
Again,
mean.
use me as an example. I've done an MBA in finance. In addition to that, I've done a master's in finance, and it taught me a big fat zero about handling my personal money. It just didn't. It teaches you corporate finance. It teaches you how to handle company and read company balance sheets. It doesn't teach you about your own credit card. It doesn't teach you how to think about your own finances.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Parents
that's an
may be
issue.
thinking, okay, my kid's learning math, so she's learning accounting, or she's learning
Yeah.
finance, so she should be knowing about this, right?
That's true.
That's
And
that's a big,
a lot of
that's a zero.
students
I mean,
think,
that's wrong,
yeah,
100%.
and that's a lot of students because I go to universities all over Dubai as well, and we teach students, and I go to these classes, and these are business and finance students, or banking and finance, or corporate finance. So they come into the class thinking, well, I'm a finance, I know this, like I know all this. I'm just here for the credits or whatever, the certificate, and 10 minutes into the class, they their eyes are just like wide open. It's just like, oh my god! And by the end of the class, they come up to me and said, I cannot believe that I would have started my life without knowing this. Because in spite of, and these are finance students. Leave aside all of the other
Yeah.
streams that we
Yeah,
haven't
yeah.
that haven't come for the program. So these are banking and finance students who know absolutely nothing
Yeah.
about basic finance. So yeah, it's not just MBA students. I think it's
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a misconception.
it is,
Maybe
yeah.
it's something to
There's
do
a
with
big
the
difference
fact.
between personal finance and finance. So that's
Yeah.
there's a very big difference between that.
Yeah.
And personal finance is still not taught or not taught well enough in most schools and curriculums around the world.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think again, a lot of people would misunderstand FinEd to be, it's not just about savings, right? It's
No, of
about
course
how to
not.
use your money. Or just,
it's about so many different things. Like your money behaviors are not just like I can give you 4 or 5 rules right now, and you pick up any article. I mean, in the newspaper where they talk about personal finance, they'll give you the same 4 or 5 rules, right? Okay, spend less than you earn, have an emergency fund, pay your bills. But in spite of all of this knowledge being very widespread, people are still not making the right decisions. So maybe it's time to look beyond that. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's time to
yeah.
look beyond just the guidelines that people are giving us. And I think what we need to understand is that our money behaviors are at the intersection of psychology and neuroscience and behavioral economics, and it's a combination of all three. So by just giving you a set of guidelines is not really. It might be easy and seem simple, but it doesn't really work. You need to understand what your money motivations are. You need to understand what your values were growing up. You need to understand how consumer behavior, how companies market to you, right? And so all of these things that are elements of which we bring together in our program, and I think that's what makes it different. So just giving you 4 or 5 guidelines is a great start,
Yeah,
but
but
there's so much more nuance than that,
Yeah,
and that's what we like to focus on in our program. That's what actually changes your behavior, because you don't want to just come for a program and say, yeah, I understood everything, but I'm not actually going to change my behavior, right? So if you want to change behavior, there are certain key things that you should know about or learn about, and that's what we like to focus on as well.
does culture play an impact? Like, for example, if I had to say a Goan boy or a Goan girl would be a little bit more financially literate than maybe an African or an American or anything, does culture play
Zero.
any kind of your
In
upbringing?
my experience, Neil, I haven't found any difference in culture. And I have
Okay.
taught kids from so many different cultures, whether it's European and Australian and Asian and Southeast. But culture plays no difference because the education is still zero in all of these countries. So
Okay.
if kids aren't learning this, they still don't know much about it. And there hasn't been so much of a culture. I don't see much difference in culture. At least I haven't seen it. So let me put it in that sense.
Okay.
Uh,
No, but like, I mean, if you were talking to an Indian boy, for example, versus talking to say an American boy, would you feel that the Indian boy is kind of more, at least he's more receptive or understanding of what you're talking about, or
Well,
is he at
kids,
this? They're both
Because
no,
Indians
no,
have been brought up
no.
to save, right, as well.
Yeah, I mean,
it's-
Parents have.
But
it's
it's not
ingrained.
just a saving. A saving is
Yeah.
just like the first step, not even the
Yeah,
first step.
yeah,
And
I
really,
mean, yeah.
if you're saving
that's
and your money is being eaten by inflation, and we can get it in that's a whole other discussion. So it's worth less than it was. So and all of these concepts which most people don't understand. So and if you say is one kid more receptive, I'd say teenagers as a demographic are not receptive to what we're teaching, at least initially. I call that unconscious incompetence. Like they don't know that they don't know this.
Okay.
It's called unconscious incompetence. They don't understand how important it is, and they don't know that. They all think, well, I got a credit card, I got a debit card, I got an allowance, so I know how to I know how to manage my money. It's unconscious incompetence. They don't realize how lacking they are in this skill. There's a cognitive bias called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It basically states that people with a low ability at a skill tend to overestimate their ability. And I see this so clearly when it comes to money. People who think they know so much about it, actually turn out to know very little, or what
Yeah,
they know
right,
is not
yeah.
wrong. And you see this in different walks of life, but I see it very, very clearly in the money domain as well.
Yeah.
And
So,
especially with youngsters, I got youngsters coming into class thinking, I know this. I have a credit card. I've read Rich Dad Poor Dad, or the classic book that
Yeah,
most
yeah,
people think
yeah,
if you read this, you're no. That is
yeah.
absolute. And then I got kids who come in and say like, I actually know nothing. I mean, or their parents say my kids are so clueless, and then I have parents saying, oh, my kids kind of know everything, and it's actually the opposite. The parents who think their kids know a lot
Yeah.
actually don't have a
Don't,
very
yeah.
good basis at all.
No,
So
I
the
understand what you're saying.
Dunning-Kruger effect is something that I see that so often.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think I'm one of the. I'm the poster child of this. The fact that you just mentioned. For example, I mean, you grew up thinking that, okay, if I save every day 10 dirhams, for example, and then in a year, in 10 years, I'll have perhaps 1 million. But what we forget to understand that 10 years down the line, that million is due to inflation is probably going to be only 50% or 60% of it. So although you're putting money in the bank and you're
Yeah.
thinking, wow, it's going to
Right,
be it's
yeah.
going to be a big pot of a piggy bank, as you may call it,
Yeah, yeah.
10 years down the line.
Right.
Once you break that piggy bank, he's going to be giving you so it's as simple as that. People don't I think people don't understand how inflation triggers into this
Yeah.
the
And
value of
inflation
your
is just
money.
one concept. There are so many concepts that once you learn and you get, widen your perspective, you suddenly have a deeper understanding of.
Right,
And
right.
I don't know if we have time, but I'd really like to get into a short description of a framework that we came up with, which I
Yeah, I
think
mean,
is
if you can just run it through. And
Yeah.
what's most important for us is that out of this episode is that we want perhaps the Goan diaspora who's listening in understand that what are the benefits of a program. So they'll ask themselves the question, why do I need to send my kids for this? And then what are the things that they're going to get out of it?
well, it's not just for their kids, right? Because
I
I
mean,
think
okay,
for grown-ups as well, it's
yeah,
something that's not many of us have been taught about. But yes, I think getting your kids to learn this at an early age, like I mentioned before, is just something that is probably the most important skill that you can give them. In my view, it is, because I don't think there's a single aspect of their life that doesn't come back to money. Or there's a single career that doesn't
Yeah.
relate back to managing your money properly,
Right.
or there isn't a single career that you couldn't be better at because you're better at managing your money. So I think that's why it's really important. And I think one of the first things that you need to understand is you need to take agency for that. Don't expect it. Oh, the schools will teach them, or somebody will, or they will learn it when they start work. You have to take agency, and you have to understand that you need to make that happen. And don't just take the back seat. This is too important to leave to chance. Right. I think the second one would be like discomfort. It's going to be difficult learning for all of us. We don't want to. I'm sure when you guys started the podcast, this was something new for you all, and it was like,
Yeah.
there's
of course,
always
yeah.
that zone of discomfort. But
Yeah.
if you're not, I think if you're not constantly in a zone of discomfort, it means you're not learning enough, you're not evolving enough, and that's what we try to understand. That when we're teaching you the program, if it's going to make you uncomfortable, but that's just because you're learning stuff. So there's so many things that that youngsters can learn from a program like this, and it's just something I wish I had been taught at 15. And I really would implore, if any parents listening, to just make sure your kids get this kind of financial education. There's no downside to it. There's a huge upside. There's a massive upside to it, and I think it's one of the skills that they're really going to thank you for
Correct.
in the future.
Yeah, true. I mean, I'm probably the best thank you would come from this. I mean, at the end, they are going to be spending money, so they need to know how to use it wisely.
Yeah, and remember, we don't want boomerang kids, right? The kids who have come
Yeah.
after finished college and they
Yeah,
come back
yeah,
and they're
they
living in
come-
your basement or whatever. So
Yeah.
you kind of want them to be independent,
Yeah,
and
that's
that's
true.
getting more difficult now because
Yeah.
life's just getting tougher, And so I think giving them the skill really gives them. It gives them so much more to lean back and to fall back.
Have you
on.
observed anything with today's generation, the way, like, the spending, behavior and things like that? I mean,
So
would you say it's changed or?
I think every generation always feels that the generation coming up is like, oh my goodness, I'm sure our parents felt the same
Yeah.
way with us.
Yes,
And if you
yeah.
look back into history, it's like right from every generation felt that the next one was, oh my goodness, these kids are a waste of time. Like they're not going to be able to manage. So that's why I feel that we feel the same way about our youngsters, but it's not. We were the same age. We were thinking the same when we
Right,
were their
right,
age.
yeah,
So I don't think there's that much of a change.
kind of the same
It's kind
pattern.
of the same, and the pattern is that cluelessness is across.
Right.
We were
Across the board.
clueless, our parents were clueless, and now our kids are going to be clueless as well, unless we break that cycle. And that's what I'm saying, that we need to take really strong, decisive steps to break that cycle.
Okay.
How far along do you think we are, if looking futuristically, where it's part of the curriculum on a day-to-day basis?
So a couple of schools have started doing it, but Neil, it's not just what they teach; it's about how you teach it. And if you have seen some of these textbooks of financial, like a couple of schools have started, they have the textbooks of financial education. You'll want to slit your wrists just in boredom because they make it so boring and it's
Right.
so
Yeah.
dry
That's true.
and it's
Yeah.
uninteresting. And I don't know how you can take a topic like this and make it uninteresting, but they managed. So
Yeah, I
right?
think it's the method of teaching.
The
That's
method,
what
it's the how,
matters,
it's the who's teaching. And I think, like when we were young, what your favorite subject was actually your favorite teacher, correct? Like all
Yeah.
of us were,
Yeah.
if you
Yes.
like the teacher, you like the subject. And
Right.
that's something that we really, we leverage that a lot. We make sure that when we teach that we really connect with the kids, and that makes a huge difference. Because kids don't if they like you, and if you build that connection with them, they will pay attention and they will listen. And but if it's and I've seen a couple of textbooks that have been out, and I cannot even begin to explain to you how boring that is. So am I optimistic? I, I I'd like to be hopeful, but just looking at the way things are, and just seeing the incentives, I don't think there are major incentives for you to teach youngsters about money, because who's going to be doing the spending in all the malls then? Who is going to be right?
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
incentives is another key question. Like, what are we teaching our kids to want? We are teaching them to want, follow influencers who think makeup is everything. You want it. So it's we really have to look a lot deeper than just are we teaching financial education in schools? It's what are the values that we are teaching them?
Yeah.
And it's not great.
It's okay, but the ball's rolling, right?
balls-
I mean,
yes. Okay. If you want to,
let's say the last 4 years.
Yes, there has been a huge change. So we have
Okay.
done thousands of students. Like in the last couple of years itself, we've done about 8,000 students who have come to the
Wow.
program. We work with banks to sponsor these programs in schools. That just gives us the scale. So we are going to so many schools and thousands of schools, and students every year who are learning this because we work with banks, because we're collaborating with them to do this.
Okay.
And what about, in short, I know we don't have much time, but what about the entrepreneurship program? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
So what we call it entrepreneurship with a twist, because when most people teach you about, if you've ever signed up for an entrepreneurship program, they will spend the program teaching you about marketing and HR, and this is how you pitch for investment. And our program is really different. We go into your mindset first, because I'm a strong believer that mindset is where it all. We talk about how failing is a really important bit, and you should be okay with it. Right. We talk about having a growth mindset. Right. Also, all of these things that are quite key to even starting off a business, right? And like I said, it's different from any entrepreneurship program because most entrepreneurship programs, they do the tactics. We do we do strategy. We talk about how you should be. Are you comfortable with difficulty? Because if you think it's going to be easy, please go start. Go do anything else. It's because there's one thing as an entrepreneur, you get kicked in the gut a couple of times a week. You need to be okay with that. You need to be okay with uncertainty. You need to be okay with ambiguity. So these are the things that we talk to students about. It's not like, let's draw up a finance plan, or let's do up an HR structure. All of that is just easy, and that's going to you can hire people to do that, but you can't hire people to think for you. You can't hire people to shape your values or to shape how you think about something, and that is what we do in our. That's why it's called entrepreneurship with a twist.
Okay, cool.
The emotional concept has to be
Yes,
brought
of
in,
course.
right? That's a very stressful thing.
You're
true.
absolutely
Carries the
right.
one who will also-
No, you're absolutely right, guys. I mean, the EQ portion of it is a very big concept, is a very big part of what we work on in the entrepreneurship program, because I think that's really quite key.
For my end, I'm very hopeful that I was doing a little bit of reading, and I can see a couple of countries. I think I forwarded a thing to you, Carrie, the other day, where Denmark apparently does something.
Yes.
They're discussing this right now at Davos for the World
Correct.
Economic Forum, and they said a couple of countries, I think
So the
Denmark,
Scandinavian
Singapore.
countries have always been much more ahead when it comes to the rest of the world with regard to their education curriculums, and we shouldn't be surprised that financial education is also taking off quite strongly over there because they've always been at the forefront of any educational change. So yeah, let's just hope that that actually trickles down to other countries.
Yeah. So I mean, what I was getting into was that, for example, for our listeners, at least in Dubai, the UAE, is this something? I mean, right now, would we tell them that it's better for them to contact KFI, for example, to get their kids into these classes, or is there a broader picture that they need to be looking at, maybe curriculums in schools and stuff like that?
So yeah, I mean, it would be great if you can contact your schools as well and push them towards having a program like this. But don't depend on that. Don't expect that to change anything. Also, just that's great for the broader picture, but make sure that your kid's taken care of. So make sure that you definitely enroll them for a program, whether it's with us or whoever. Just make sure that they definitely get that program, that they definitely get those basics, and that's So I think by February we'll be running. We don't usually do programs anymore on a one-on-one basis. We usually work with corporates, but because we've been getting a lot of I think a lot of questions with regard to that. We'll probably run one in February, and I think that would be it'd be great if you can enroll
Good.
your kids for that.
So we're gonna put up your handle on the episode.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
and
How
then-
do we find you? Your website?
KFI.global is the website.
Okay, all right,
And the social media handle is at
Yeah, it'll
KFI
be all the
social.
same, I'm
Yeah,
guessing.
yeah.
Yeah. So those who are viewing can see it on the screen,
Yeah.
and those on Spotify and any podcast you listen to will be putting it in the captions. So thank you so much, Marilyn, for coming in. It was a lovely. I think we could go on actually.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to know.
But it is
There are more questions.
siesta time, so maybe we
Yeah,
should
it is
stop.
siesta time. Yeah. Geopark.
Okay. So great. Yeah, I mean, I like Carrie said, we could go on and on. It's a little bit more closer to me because of my daughter, and the thing that we discuss this on a regular basis. But I'm sure I hope that a lot of listeners listening in will resonate and understand the importance of this. And thank you so much for taking the time out to be with us today.
I'm privileged to
And,
be here. I'm really so happy and very honored that I was invited. So thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you. We are honored to have you. And
In case we have the younger kids listening at this point of time, the podcast is
Smarter, richer, braver. Yeah.
Smarter,
Smarter,
richer,
Richer,
braver.
Braver, yeah. And it's all on all podcast platforms.
It's on all
right?
podcast platforms, and especially for younger kids, where we talk about. It's not just about money. We talk about a lot of issues which nobody talks to youngsters about. So career guidance. We talk about like normally we say, oh, you should go read the book, but no youngster is going to pick up a book and actually read it. Or there are very few of them. So we've actually interviewed the authors of these books and told them, okay, if you have youngsters listening, what would your message be? What do you want to tell them about these particular topics? Whether it's about college, how do I know the college is right for me? Should I take a gap year? All really relevant questions that youngsters have, but they don't really have anybody to ask these questions to. I mean, I started this because of my daughter. I want her to, if I tell her she's not going to listen, so I said, okay, let me just get the world's best experts and ask them, right? And hopefully it will make a difference. So that was one of the main motivations.
That's good. That's good. I mean, the education
podcast.
starts there. This is for our worldwide audience. I mean, whoever's listening out, at least the podcast is a great way to start off with. Have your kids, or have even if you're, I think even for the adults, I've listened to a couple of them, and they were very, very educative, I will say.
Thank you.
So kudos to that, and all the best.
Wish you all the best.
Yes.
And thank you so much, Neil.
Thank you, Carrie.
As always. By the way, you owe that money to me. But thank you everyone for listening and viewing. And you can find us on Spotify, on YouTube. And if you have any suggestions, anything, any idea, send an email to us. As always, kissmeimgoan@gmail.com. And Dev Borikoro. See you next on the next
Thank you.
episode.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye.